Thank you very much, Chairperson. This is now the second time that Honourable Souls gets me caught off guard, because he's usually very stringent on using all of his time. But thank you very much, and good evening, General.
Good evening, sir.
General, I think we've, in this whole process, heard a lot of allegations. Allegations made by you, starting on the 6th of July, and also in your first appearance here and in front of the Mdlanga Commission, and also from other witnesses, some making allegations against you, some making other wild allegations, some trying to advance their innocence as well. In terms of the allegations made by you or by others. And it's very difficult for Parliament to actually get to the bottom of what is true and what is not, because we're not investigators, and it makes it quite difficult. And to a certain extent, one wants to say that there's not an abundance of truth that was here in front of us. And that makes it very, very difficult. I want to just go back to the explanatory witness statement that you submitted, General, with the evidence regarding the allegation of the money paid to former Minister Bheki Cele. And I know this you did speak to this morning at great length, but I do just want to revisit it because I think it's quite important. Would you agree that from this evidence, from the WhatsApp messages, the two affidavits, that it's quite probable, almost want to say clear, that Captain Hlala's intention was to pay the 7,000 rand into former Minister Cele's account? Do you agree?
Yeah, well, that's a feeling we have, considering the communication he had with the gentleman, and subsequent to that, he then started asking, "Who are you?" And after noticing who the person is, he then deletes the communication. So that's what makes us believe when you look at the similarities of the numbers.
Exactly.
And the title that he uses to address the person.
Exactly. But what do you think would have been the reason for him to have wanted to pay the former minister? Because if I look at the dates, those messages of a payment took place in December 2024. Those messages were sent to the person, the wrongfully identified person, the wrong number, on the 27th of December 2024. So that's after Bheki Cele was not minister anymore. What could he have wanted to pay him for, in your opinion?
We really don't understand, because when you look at the figures, the amount, and it's not that much. So, and when we also been told by this gentleman, there were a lot of documents that went to him. So we really don't understand the reason behind the messages and subsequent to that, the money. So I really wouldn't understand. Perhaps it's something that was discussed over the call that perhaps might have made Matala to then send the documents on WhatsApp only to discover later maybe he saved it wrong. We're not sure.
But if one looks at paragraph 4 of the affidavit of the person that the message was sent to and the 7,000 rand was paid into, he says that from the messages that he received from Captain Hlala, Captain Hlala already paid 50,000 rand to someone. but that he was not getting assistance. If you read in paragraph 4 on, I don't think there's page numbers.
Second line on page 2.
That's correct, yeah. Yeah, the second page of the statement. And then later he said he'll pay an additional amount for extra service, is the words this person used. And that's most probably from the messages that were sent to him. But this is a few days, about 20 days, if I remember correctly, after the raid at Kat Mhlala's house. And it was a few days before the directive of Minister Mchunu. Am I correct? So am I correct to say that it's probable that this holds that there's some connection here, or don't you think there's any connection
Between Minister Mchunu's
directive, the raid at Kat Mhlala's house, the extra service? The question that we don't have an answer to is what would the former minister have influence on to assist Mr. Mhlala with?
Yeah, no, what our understanding as a team is that there's a possibility that the relationship between Kat Mhlala and probably Minister Cele, the former Minister Cele, has something to do with this contract that seems like Mhlala want assistance. The directive of Mr. Mchunu come 2 or 3 days after that conversation. And we know that after Minister Mchunu has sent that directive, or before he sent the directive, he had given an instruction for this contract to be cancelled before the directive. So surely if there was a connection between the two of them, I don't see why would then Mhlala engage with Cele on this if it was. But instead, Mhlala will be in good terms in engaging with Cele to make sure that nothing that what Minister Mchunu said must happen. But Minister Mchunu had given a directive that something is not right with this contract, so therefore something must be done to correct the wrong.
See, because if one also looks at the messages that were sent to this person by accident with the wrong number, wrong digit in the number, there's a lot of documents that were sent, and it was deleted. Now, the problem is, or my thinking is, that we heard from other witnesses the allegation that former Minister Cele is ruling the South African Police Service from the grave, was the words that were used. The National Commissioner denies that. He says he can't see truth in that. But do you agree that if one looks at this, it makes one think? Because there's a raid, there's a search at the premises of Kat Mhlala. We saw the messages between Kat Mhlala and Brown Mokgotsi, that there's an unease about what's happening now. He pays someone 50,000 rand, and he says to what he thinks is Minister Cele that is not getting the assistance that he actually wanted. And then he pays an extra 7,000 rand. It is a very small amount, strange amount. But it seems as though he thinks that Minister Cele would be able to assist him in this criminal issue. Or am I sitting with pot in this?
Well, I wouldn't know. What I know is that perhaps in regard to what happened on the 6th of December, is that Mr. Mhlala's property was searched.
Yes.
And firearms were taken. But he was not arrested. The only thing that happened there was a search and firearms taken. So when he engages with General Cele in relation to the firearms taken, in relation, or if he engaged with him in December, I would like to believe perhaps it might either be about the firearms, which I heard General Cele talking about, or alternatively, something to do with what Minister Mkhunu has started in dealing with the contract. But what we know from communication is that the only communication from Ket Matlala that we see at the time when they were engaging, it's from the phone that was found from him later. There was a phone that was found from Ket Matlala on that raid of the 6th of December. But I'm told that they couldn't open the phone. So as a result, they could not see what was inside, and the phone was given back to him. So that's a communication that is missing. But the other communications that happen thereafter are the ones that takes us back to that conversation of December. But we know that during that December time and going forward, it was with Mkhotsi, and it was also with that Mr. Suleiman Karim from Northwest. Those are the two people that CAT seems to have approached for intervention on the contract.
On a different issue, but you now mentioned phones and data on phones. You earlier spoke on the devices of Minister Mkhunu, and you said that he deleted certain messages. But don't the organization have, the police have the technology to retrieve deleted messages? So is that not possible?
It has been retrieved. It's exactly what I was saying. They didn't know that.
Okay, I just wanted clarity on that.
Yes,
so the messages aren't gone?
No, they're not gone.
Okay.
They were erased, but they're back now.
Okay, no, that's important. The question I think have been asked to you, but I want to ask it again. Is there factions in the South African Police Service, especially in top management?
Well, it might not be directly, but you're probably going to get that. I might not necessarily confirm or say there is one now, but there was a time in the South African Police Service where we had such. And the faction was mainly about those that regard themselves as comrade, politically connected, and those that were regarded as, call it apartheid police, if you will. People that grew up in the service that were not part of the non-statutory force, and those that came from outside as part of non-statutory force. So we've had that situation in the police.
General, what I think nobody can deny, if one looks at all the evidence and all the testimony that we've heard, and that's in front of the Mgalanga Commission as well, is that there's syndicates operating. There's, as you also put it, the big five is actually nothing against, I think your words were earlier today, the big bras. That's even more dangerous. And that is, that's very concerning. But what actually worries me more is that it seems as though there's also a lot of ad hoc corruption, if I can put it like that. There's a lot of, let me first qualify, there's a lot of dedicated, good police officers out there that serves South Africa and that serves and protects. But there's also a lot of corrupt and corruptible police officials. That's not necessarily part of this whole network. But, and I want to commend you for also admitting this earlier today, or for highlighting this, that there's too many generals. Because we've heard of a lot of police officers during this 5+ months, but it's very few times that it's not a general. It's either a major general, lieutenant general, and a lot of them are on suspension. I have been suspended. All these allegations against them, and I want to thank you for highlighting that, because it seems as though we have a very top-heavy police service, but also that a lot of, or some of, those top management are living extremely high lives. It's as if they are pop stars with Durban Julys and parties everywhere. And they're not actually there to serve and to manage the police service. Would you mind to comment on that statement?
Yeah, well, there will be amongst us that will live large. But again, until an investigation is conducted, lifestyle audit is done, people might be justified why they're living a large life, because they might be coming from rich families and we've got inheritance, they've got businesses, because we are allowed to do business as well. There are businesses that they are running that gives an income. So there are many reasons that some of the colleagues might live large. But it's something that we see, but we don't investigate. So what that becomes a problem, because we end up not knowing what is the source of the wealth that we see before us, but it's there.
But now there's a very big problem, and that is, and there's, I think, it will always be at odds end with each other, is a police service and an internal investigating unit such as IPID. You will always have friction or problems between the two. But it seems as though IPID is abused. But you can't really do anything about this very deep-rooted corruption if IPID is not actually functioning. How do we get IPID to function? And to not to have when there's investigations, that it's not said that it's just factions or it's driving a certain agenda or it's infiltration. How do we clean it so that we can get rid of the corruption?
Honorable members, I think if you have, number one, people that are very disciplined, dedicated, and not politically inclined that are leading that institution, the abuse of their powers will not be realized. I'm saying this because of so many cases that IPID have opened, which are cases that who cannot justify why they came up with those cases. A typical example, it's when they wrote to me and they said the Minister Mkhunu registered a complaint with them. They wrote it in black and white. The head of investigation who's currently acting, who was not there when the letter was written, flew to KZN to withdraw that letter. And he gave me a 2-paragraph letter to say it was not a minister, it was an anonymous complaint. But 2 weeks later, he told the acting minister. The acting minister told the National Commission told me. When I confronted him, he started denying. But he told the acting minister that the chief of staff is the one who complained. So then I asked a question, well, why was he not honest? If it's a chief of staff, most likely it's a minister then. Why are they trying to cover it up? So it is that behavior of the head of the institution, which the acting is already compromised. So once we have such individuals, we're not going to get a good IPID running. There is a section in the IPID Act, I don't have it in front of me, I cannot remember. It's a section that they're abusing. The intention of the legislature, I believe, was to make sure that the powers of the police are controlled. Police don't go out in their own making, just kill and assault people, things that are alleged by some of the Lodge or these people that came in here. That's why IPID exists, so they can investigate such behaviors and correct it, take those police officers who do wrong to court. But there was an section in that act that gives the powers to the national director to initiate a case, not because there was an action that was done by the police in a line function. They themselves, they can act like police. They decide they don't like you, they suspect to be involved in the wrong, they investigate you. It is that section of the Act that might need to be relooked at. You remove that section, IP become a vanguard of the police on what police does and be able to correct. That is one. But on the other side, IP must be capacitated. If we're to really look at it, pains me. Well, I'm not working for them, but it pains me when you look at the resources that they have, human resources and many other resources that they need to be able to carry out the task. If the police has done wrong, and if there's a collusion in the police with the wrong that the police have done, one of the things, typical example, we could be involved in a shooting, police officer shot and kill someone. The forensic that attends, IP is a detective, but the person who tells a crime scene is a police officer, not an IP expert. So that police officer, if in cahoots with the one that shot, they'll mess up that scene. Evidence is collected, is packaged, is sent to forensic lab, and you wait for the result. Whose lab is this? It's the same SAPS lab. Then IP must rely on the same SAPS lab. So if the collision between the police, the results coming out of that lab will not be positive.
Yes.
And then IP won't be successful because IP don't have their own alternatives of conducting the investigation. So it's some of those things that might be looked at. If we strengthen those things, perhaps we might have a good institution going forward.
Thank you very much, General, for that. I think it's valuable. I also think one should consider having some kind of, that the head of IPIT may never be considered to become National Commissioner, for instance, because that's one of the allegations, obviously, is that certain things were done so that a certain person could become National Commissioner. But that's just a by the way statement. Just one last question, or there's a lot of ridiculous allegations that have been made against you as well. Not even going to, I don't think anybody is going to ask you that, but it was made under oath. And that is something that's quite upsetting in this whole process, as was that people do not take the oath serious at all. I mean, it's even been said under oath that you are a CIA agent. I don't have to ask you if you are or not. But there's also, I've received an affidavit that was made this evening. And you mentioned earlier today when you were talking of the blue lights that escorted Honorable Adams to the prison. You spoke of a conference call that will take place. Am I correct? Between someone that will testify. There's a case that was opened by Detective Sergeant Thomas this